The evening sun painted the city skyline gold as Louis and Joy walked hand in hand into the cafe where they first met. Friends turned their heads when the couple entered. To anyone watching, they seemed flawless, smiling, in sync, the type of pair that makes others whisper, "That's relationship goals." Joy radiated confidence. She was climbing the ladder in her career, respected for her brilliance and admired for her discipline. Louis, her partner of 3 years, worked in creative design. Together, they seemed unstoppable. They laughed easily in public, supported each other at events, and shared pictures online that earned endless hearts and comments. But behind the pictures, behind the curated smiles, lived a silence that no filter could cover. That night at dinner, Joy was distracted, scrolling through her phone while Louis stirred his coffee absent-mindedly. "Big presentation tomorrow?" Louis asked, his voice casual, though his eyes searched hers for attention. Yeah," Joy replied, barely looking up. "It could be a turning point for me." Louis nodded, a weak smile on his lips. He wanted to tell her about his own day, how his boss criticized his project, how small and invisible he felt, but he stayed quiet. Instead, he swallowed the lump in his throat and told himself, "She's busy. Don't bother her with your problems." At home later that evening, Joy worked late on her laptop. Louis lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling. His mind buzzed with unspoken words. When did we stop talking about little things? When did I start feeling alone, even when she's right here beside me? Joy wasn't cruel. She wasn't unloving. She was simply caught up in her goals, blind to the quiet erosion happening in their connection. Louis, meanwhile, didn't know how to voice his emptiness. He loved her deeply, but love was starting to feel like living on memories instead of moments. Psychological insight. Cheating rarely starts with betrayal in the body, it begins with a whisper in the heart. That whisper says, "You are not seen. You are not heard. You are not enough here." Left unchecked, it grows louder, until someone seeks validation outside instead of addressing the silence inside. One evening, Louis met his old college friend Jacob. Over drinks, Jacob noticed Louis's quietness. He asked, "You and Joy still the dream couple?" Jacob asked. Louis chuckled, though it sounded hollow. "Everyone thinks that. Truth is, sometimes I feel like I don't exist in my own relationship." Jacob frowned. "Have you told her?" Louis shook his head. "She's stressed enough with her work. I don't want to be another problem." That sentence revealed the heart of Louis's struggle. He felt unseen, but also voiceless. Instead of expressing his needs, he suppressed them. Instead of seeking connection, he masked his loneliness. Psychological insight. In relationships, neglect isn't always intentional. Often, it's the result of mismatched priorities, poor communication, and unspoken pain. But neglect, intentional or not, still wounds. And when wounds remain untreated, the mind begins searching for bandages, sometimes in dangerous places. Louis didn't want to admit it, but envy stirred when he saw couples laughing together at the park, sharing ice cream, looking carefree. He missed that. He missed Joy, though she was sitting right beside him. One night, as she worked late again, Louis scrolled through old pictures of them, their first trip, their silly selfies, the way her eyes used to light up just being with him. He whispered softly to himself, "Where did we go wrong?" But Joy did hear. She was too busy chasing deadlines. And Louis, too afraid to disturb her, chosen silence. Silence that would soon become the soil where temptation could grow. Louis cooked dinner sometimes, but most nights, the food grew cold before she even noticed. Their conversations shrank from hours of laughter into a handful of routine exchanges. "How was your day?" "Busy." "Did you eat?" "Not yet, I'll grab something later." It was like watching color drain slowly from a canvas, leaving only shades of gray. One Saturday morning, Louis suggested, "Maybe we could go hiking." Just us, like we used to. Joy didn't even look up from her laptop. This project deadline is suffocating me. Rain check. Louis forced a smile. Sure. Rain check. But inside, the smile crumbled. The rain check had become permanent weather. Psychological insight. Dissatisfaction in relationships doesn't explode overnight, it seeps quietly through repeated dismissals, unmet needs, and neglected moments. One partner feels invisible, while the other doesn't realize the erosion happening. Seeds of dissatisfaction grow silently in this soil. Later that day, Louis went for a walk alone. The park was full of families, couples holding hands, and children racing each other. Watching them, Louis felt a pang of longing. He remembered when Joy used to grab his hands suddenly, giggling as they ran through this same park. Now, her hand was always clutching a phone. Am I asking for too much? Louis wondered. Or am I simply asking for something she can't give anymore? That evening, he tried again. Joy, do you remember when we used to talk for hours about nothing? I miss that. Joy sighed, closing her laptop briefly. Louis, I know. But I need you to understand, this phase in my career is everything. If I succeed here, it's for both of us. Louis nodded. I get it. But in his heart, the word stung, both of us. It didn't feel that way. Psychological insight. This is the tragedy of unmet needs. The partner who works endlessly may genuinely believe they're sacrificing for the relationship. But the other partner doesn't feel loved by the sacrifices, they feel abandoned by them. Love languages get lost in translation, leaving space for loneliness to take root. One night, Louis met up with Jacob again. Sitting at the bar, Jacob noticed his friend's silence. You look tired, man. Hope everything is okay at home. Louis shrugged. She's amazing. Smart. Driven. But sometimes, I feel like I'm just background noise in her life. Jacob leaned back, frowning. That's dangerous, Louis. People who feel invisible start looking for ways to be seen. Louis laughed weakly. I'm not that type of guy. Jacob shook his head. Most people who cheat aren't that type. They're people who felt neglected too long. Don't ignore that. The words haunted Louis on his walk home. He wanted to dismiss them, but deep down, he felt Jacob was right. At home, Joy was asleep on the couch, laptop still glowing beside her. Louis gently closed it, pulling a blanket over her. He sat beside her for a moment, staring at the woman he loved. I know you love me, he thought. But love isn't just about staying. It's about showing. And I don't feel you showing anymore. Psychological insight. Invisible needs become dangerous needs. When we don't feel seen, we crave attention elsewhere. It's not always about desire for another person, it's about desire for recognition, for validation, for proof that we matter. Without communication, dissatisfaction becomes a silent poison. The following week, Joy forgot Louis's art exhibition. It was his first time showcasing a painting in years, and he had quietly reminded her 3 times. When the event ended, Louis scrolled through his phone, no missed calls, no messages from her. Just silence. Walking home under dim streetlights, Louis's heart felt heavier than ever. She didn't even notice I was missing from her world. When Joy finally called hours later, her voice was tired. I'm so sorry, Louis. The meeting ran longer than expected. How was it? Louis paused, his throat tight. Fine. It was fine. But it wasn't fine. And the lie buried deeper dissatisfaction into his chest. Psychological insight. Dissatisfaction turns to resentment when apologies come without change. The wounded partner begins to believe, I don't matter here. That belief is what leads them down the dangerous road of seeking connection elsewhere. That night, Louis lay awake beside Joy, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully. "I'm not looking for someone else," he told himself. "I just want her back. The her that laughed with me, noticed me, loved me openly. Why does it feel like she's gone, even though she's right here?" Unspoken, unanswered, his loneliness deepened. And in the cracks of loneliness, temptation began preparing its roots. The office buzzed with the low hum of printers, ringing phones, and hurried footsteps. Louis sat at his desk, sketching designs on his tablet, but his mind wasn't in it. His thoughts drifted to Joy, her empty chair at dinner last night, her tired goodnight before rolling over in bed. That's when Helen, a new project coordinator, walked over. She was warm, approachable, the type of person who looked you directly in the eyes when speaking. "Louis, your designs for the campaign are brilliant," she said, leaning slightly over his desk. "Seriously, I don't know how you come up with these ideas." Louis blinked. Compliments weren't rare at work, but there was something different about her tone, it felt genuine. He smiled faintly. "Thanks. I wasn't sure if anyone even liked them." Helen tilted her head. "Are you kidding? You've got talent. I'd kill for that kind of creativity." For the first time in weeks, Louis felt a spark of recognition. Someone had noticed him. Psychological insight. This is how emotional affairs often begin, not with desire, but with validation. When a partner feels unseen at home, even small gestures of recognition from someone else can feel intoxicating. It's not about love at this stage, it's about being reminded you exist. Over the next few days, Louis found himself looking forward to casual conversations with Helen. She asked questions Joy hadn't asked in months. "How was your weekend? What's your art about? What inspires you?" And Louis answered. At first cautiously, then more openly, until their conversations flowed with ease. He found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in a while. One night, Louis mentioned Helen casually. "She liked my new sketches. Said they were some of my best." "That's nice," Joy replied absently, typing into her laptop. No follow-up question. No spark of interest. Louis nodded, swallowing disappointment. Psychological insight. Attention is a form of affection. When it disappears from a partner, but reappears in a stranger, the neglected partner begins to compare. Comparison is dangerous, it magnifies what's missing and glorifies what's found elsewhere. One afternoon, Helen and Louis stayed late at the office. She brought him coffee without asking. "You look exhausted," she said softly. Louis laughed. "Yeah. Been a rough couple of weeks." "Well," she smiled, "for what it's worth, I think you're doing amazing. Not everyone sees how much work you put in, but I do." Louis's chest tightened. Those words, "I see you," were exactly what he'd been starving to hear. He wanted to dismiss the warmth spreading through him, but it was too late. A seed had been planted. That night, Louis came home and in the back of his mind, Helen's voice whispered, "I see you." Psychological insight. Temptation doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it slips in through a smile, a kind word, or a shared moment of laughter. The danger lies not in the kindness itself, but in the unmet hunger it feeds. A hungry heart mistakes crumbs for a feast. The following week, Joy canceled dinner plans again. Louis stared at the empty chair across from him at the restaurant, phone buzzing with her apologetic text, "I'll make it up to you." But he didn't want apologies anymore. He wanted presence. He glanced at his phone. Without thinking, he typed a quick message to Helen, "Long day. Want to grab coffee?" She replied within minutes, "Sure. You deserve a break." And so, the line between friendship and something more began to blur. When Louis met Helen at the cafe, she smiled warmly. They talked about everything, art, music, childhood dreams. Hours passed like minutes. Louis felt alive in her presence, like he was rediscovering parts of himself that had gone numb. Walking home afterward, guilt pricked at him. It's just coffee. Nothing wrong with that. But the truth pressed heavier, he had sought comfort in someone else, and it wasn't an accident. That night, lying beside Joy, he stared at the ceiling once more. He wanted to tell her everything, to say, I'm slipping. I need you. We're in trouble. But when he turned, she was already asleep, laptop still open. And so, he whispered only to himself, she wouldn't understand. Psychological insight. This is the quiet danger of unmet needs. Instead of confronting their partner, many choose the easier path, confiding in someone else. At first, it feels harmless. But slowly, an emotional bridge forms. And once built, that bridge is hard to burn. Louis closed his eyes, caught between loyalty to Joy and the warmth of validation from Helen. He hadn't crossed the line yet, but the soil was fertile, the seed planted. And deep down, he knew, if something didn't change soon, the spark could grow into a fire. The days slipped into weeks, and what began as casual conversations with Helen soon became something Louis secretly relied on. Her laughter lingered in his head, her words of encouragement softened his self-doubt, and her presence filled a void he no longer even attempted to ask Joy to fill. But with each growing connection, Louis also felt a sharp sting of guilt. At night, lying beside Joy, he would stare at the ceiling and whisper to himself. It's just friendship. Nothing more. I'm not doing anything wrong. Psychological insight. This is where many fall into the trap of self-deception. To ease the guilt of seeking someone else's comfort, the mind invents rationalizations, it's harmless. It's innocent. I deserve this. These justifications are not truth, they are bandages covering a wound that keeps bleeding. One evening, Joy arrived home late again, laptop bag slung across her shoulder, exhaustion on her face. I'm sorry, Louis, she said, kissing his cheek distractedly. We lost a client today. I've got to figure out damage control. Louis nodded, but bitterness twisted inside him. She doesn't even notice I'm slipping away. She doesn't see that I'm starving for her attention. When Joy disappeared into the bedroom to work, Louis's phone buzzed. A message from Helen. Rough day. Want to talk? He hesitated for a moment. Then he typed back, yeah. You're the only one who gets it. The words sank in after he sent them. The only one who gets it. His chest tightened. It wasn't true, Joy once got it. She used to be his anchor, his safe space. But now, in the hollow of neglect, he convinced himself otherwise. Psychological insight. When dissatisfaction festers, comparison becomes poison. The partner at home is seen only through their shortcomings, while the outsider is idealized. This distortion fuels justification, my partner doesn't understand me, but this person does. It blinds us to the truth that what we crave could often be repaired if we dared to speak honestly. That weekend, Joy suggested they have dinner together. She booked a table at a nice restaurant, her way of making up for lost time. Louis dressed, but his excitement was hollow. At the table, Joy tried to start conversation, but Louis's answers were clipped, distracted. He compared every word to Helen's attentiveness. Joy noticed. You've been distant, Louis. Is something wrong? He shook his head quickly. No, I'm fine. But in his mind, a darker voice whispered, what's the point in telling her? She wouldn't understand. Later that night, Louis lay awake, scrolling through his phone. A message from Helen glowed on the screen. Thinking of you. Hope you're okay. His heart leapt. That simple message felt like oxygen. He replied instantly. And again, he whispered the lie, it's just friendship. Psychological insight. Justification often follows a pattern, denial of wrongdoing, rationalization of intent, and minimization of consequences. The cheater tells themselves, "I'm not crossing a line. It's just harmless attention." But each rationalization moves them one step closer to betrayal. The following week, Louis and Helen worked late at the office. They ordered takeout, laughing as they swapped stories about embarrassing teenage years. "You're easy to talk to," Helen said, smiling warmly. Louis's chest tightened again. "So are you." For a moment, their eyes lingered on each other longer than they should have. Louis quickly looked away, but his pulse raced. Walking home afterward, guilt gnawed at him. "I shouldn't let this go further. I need to pull back." But then another voice pushed back, "Why should I? I'm not getting this at home. I deserve to feel alive again." And just like that, the justification won. When he got home, instead of sitting beside Joy, instead of trying again, Louis quietly walked into the living room, pulled out his phone, and texted Helen. "I can't stop thinking about you tonight." Psychological insight. This is how betrayal takes root, not always in the body first, but in the mind. Justifications silence guilt, comparisons magnify neglect, and loneliness fuels the need for connection. By the time the physical line is crossed, the emotional betrayal has long been in motion. The next morning, Joy noticed Louis smiling at his phone. "Who are you texting?" she asked casually. Louis froze for a fraction of a second, then lied smoothly, "Jacob. Just catching up." Joy nodded, unaware of the hidden cracks widening beneath their feet. And Louis, once again, whispered to himself, "It's harmless. It's nothing. I deserve this." But deep down, he knew he was building a house of lies, one brick at a time. And one day, the weight of it would collapse. Rain tapped gently against the office windows. It was another late evening, the kind that blurred into night before anyone noticed. Louis and Helen sat across from each other, half-empty takeout containers on the table, laptops closed after hours of work. "You're good company, Louis," Helen said softly, her eyes lingering. "I don't think I've laughed this much at work before." Louis smiled, but his chest tightened. He knew the line between them had grown thinner with every shared joke, every coffee, every text message late at night. Part of him wanted to stand up, leave, and go home to Joy. But another part, the louder part, was hungry. Hungry for the validation, the warmth, the attention he felt slipping further from his relationship. Psychological insight. This is the danger of unmet needs left unspoken. Over time, the cheater convinces themselves that pursuing attention elsewhere is natural, even inevitable. What begins as emotional comfort quietly builds into opportunity. And when the opportunity is strong enough, temptation crosses into action. Helen reached across the table, brushing a napkin toward him. Their fingers touched, just briefly, just accidentally, but Louis did pull away. The air shifted. Silence grew heavy between them, filled with something unsaid. "Louis." Helen whispered. He swallowed hard. "This is wrong. Stop now. Go home." But his mind raced with rationalizations. "Joy doesn't notice me. She doesn't care. I deserve this." The whisper of temptation drowned out the voice of conscience. Before either of them could rethink, Louis leaned forward, closing the space between them. The kiss was soft at first, hesitant, but it carried the weight of months of longing. Watch out for the continuation of this emotional, educative NP.